legally by counsel and an attorney, and maybe they could place themselves on record.
Yes, you may do that from where you are if you are able to. Yes.
Good morning, Chairperson, members of the
Good morning.
Commission. It's correct. My name is Annelien van den Heever. I'm an advocate at Johannesburg Bar and a member of the Legal Practice Council. I'm here on instructions of Tsepo Matopo, of Matopo Attorneys, and we represent Mr. Singh.
Yes.
I will, in due course, Chairperson, allude to when we actually took over as a team and the difficulties we encountered.
Yes.
Now, we are appreciative, Chairperson, of the fact that we did not comply with your directives. However...
Yes, hang on. Let's just, you will get a chance to address me fully. I just wanted you to place yourselves on record. Then Mr. Selega can continue, and then we take it from there.
As a please.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure my learned friend is at pains for me to draw to your attention that they have not served, but handed us up an affidavit this morning, which deals with the issue my learned friend was seeking to raise with you now. But what I will do is to have Mr. Singh take the oath.
I think what you should do is tell me what the legal team's plans are. And then in terms of the plans for today, as well as what evidence Mr. Singh is supposed to, what matters Mr. Singh is supposed to cover in his evidence and the questioning. And then after that, you can tell me what counsel for Mr. Singh's attitude is, and then at that stage we can allow her an opportunity to address me.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, from the side of the Commission, the hearing today was scheduled in order for Mr. Singh to deal with matters that pertains firstly to his secondment from Transnet to Eskom. And after arriving there, to deal with matters that then unfold while he's at Eskom. Those matters, in a sequential order of events, in a chronological order, will include matters of contracts given to McKinsey and Trillion. And I use contracts given in a loose sense, but he can give us insight into that and give the chairperson evidence into that. And then you have transactions relating to Tegeta that has been the focus of the team's attention lately. And that is related to the acquisition of Optimum, the events leading up to Eskom making a decision in regard to a prepayment of 1.68 billion rand. A submission was prepared, which from the evidence it is apparent that it was signed by both Mr. Singh and Mr. Koko, and Mr. Singh can testify on that. And the purpose for that submission and the decision that was made. From there, Chairperson, we have their submission also made in regard to the 659 million rand prepayment. Mr. Singh could also give the Chairperson what he knows about that and the purpose for the decision being made in regard to that prepayment. He might address the Chairperson also.
I think you might wish to bring the mic closer to you so that your voice will be louder.
He might address the Chairperson also in regard to the issue of the 2.17 billion rand penalties that Eskom was seeking to enforce against Optimum, and how that matter ultimately got to be dealt with in regard to Tegeta. There's an issue of the guarantee that prepayment of 1.6 billion rand gets to be converted the next day into a guarantee. Mr. Singh, from the evidence, played some role in that regard, and we are expecting him also to testify on that before the Commission. So from our side, we are ready to lead his evidence on all those issues. And we have a particular order, and the main focus is the Tegeta. But we know that since last year, after Mr. Singh was served with a 10.6 directive chairperson, an affidavit directing him to file an affidavit on matters set out in that directive, with documentation provided to him relative to those matters. The affidavits that were due, according to the directives, on the 4th of September 2020 have not been provided. I believe in the affidavit now submitted this morning, my learned friend will address you on the reasons for that. There is a letter from us, which is the last annexure I saw in that affidavit. I only wish to refer the chairperson to that letter. My learned friend can do so as well, but I think that's, for me, the nub of the issue. So what we have in the file for Mr. Singh, absent his affidavit, is his submission, written submission to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee. That submission, chairperson, is dated 5 December 2017. So that's how far back that submission was prepared.
Did it cover all the matters that he has been told he needs to testify about? Or those that were in the 10.6 directive?
It has covered the Tegeta transactions, the Tegeta matters, both the 1.6. Well, I say the Tegeta because it will be explained how those decisions were made.
Yes.
It has covered that prepayment of 1.6 billion. It has covered the prepayment of 659 million. It has covered the McKinsey and Trillian relationship. I'm not sure whether Mr. Singh covered his secondment, but I'm sure he would deal with how he was sent to Eskom.
Yeah.
So those matters are covered,
Yes.
the main issues. And then we also have the transcript of Mr. Singh's testimony at the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, which is, I think Mr. Singh testified on the 23rd of January 2018. We have that. We've shared that with our learned friends and indicated that that's what we will rely on at the present stage.
Yes, okay.
That's
where you are. Okay, let me
that's
hear
the position from our
a
side.
counsel for Mr. Singh. I think you can move to the podium because I think you may have quite some substantive issues to deal with. They will sanitize first, and then you can move to the podium.
Chairperson,
Yes.
as already stated for the record, I appear on behalf of Mr. Singh. We prepared an affidavit, relatively comprehensive, dealing with all the issues since the directive were issued. I understand the original does form part of the file. I would beg leave to hand up a copy, or if you are in possession of the copy, I wish to take you through the affidavit.
I don't think I've got a copy.
I am handing, I think it's the original, oh, this is the copy. Chairperson, let me hand you mine at this point because it's stapled together. I think it would be better for you to follow it in that regard.
Okay. Tell me what the purpose of this affidavit is.
Chairperson, the purpose of the affidavit is set out in paragraph 5, page 2. May I take you to that?
Paragraph 5, you said.
Yes, it's on page 2. We state here, the purpose of this affidavit is to set out and give reasons to the chairperson, the Honourable Judge President Zondo, supposed to be Deputy of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry, to allegations of state capture, corruption and fraud in the public sector regarding my failure to comply with the 2 directives issued to myself in terms of Regulation 10.6. So this is,
you might just wish to raise your voice or
I
bring
will
the
do
mic
so.
closer. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We then go in paragraph 6, Chairperson, and we refer to the directives and the dates on which they were issued. And in paragraph 7, we state, it is common course that we did not adhere.
Well, before you proceed, why is this explanation brought at the last minute today when he has had ample time to have done so?
Chairperson, if I go through the affidavit, you will understand to a large extent why it's brought at this point in time. And in due course, I will address you on various issues that arose during the course of exchange of communication. And finally, this culminated, as I said, and this will come in due course, in a virtual or a Zoom meeting that was held between ourselves and the legal team for the Commission, including the investigators. And at that point, we explained to them what our position is. And all of that, Chairperson, is contained in our affidavit. I think it's quite important that
Well, let's start with that, because it's inconvenient that I should be given this affidavit on the morning of the day when he's supposed to testify about his explanation. That could have been dealt with earlier, so that by today we would have had certainty about what's happening.
Indeed.
And if for argument's sake, I had come to the conclusion after seeing his affidavit maybe 2 weeks ago that I will allow him not to testify today, we could have made arrangements to have another witness to use today. But when the affidavit is brought on the morning of the day when he's supposed to testify, it's important that I know whether there is a proper explanation why it is brought so late.
Indeed, I take note of what you say, Chairperson. The situation is that the events that led us to filing such a late affidavit has its roots in the events that unfolded vis-a-vis what our client needed to do. I think there was an intention at some stage that we would try and be in a position today to present you with an affidavit and give evidence. But as you will see from the comprehensive affidavit, it was impossible to do so. We tried, Chairperson, to, as I say, to be here today. That was our wish. But for the reasons set out in this affidavit, it turned out that we were not in a position to get to this point. In fact, we raised the issue, as I've already stated, on Friday with the legal team. There's various communications, and I will refer you to that. We've dealt with it in our affidavit. that deals with the predicament, if I can call it, which my client finds himself in. So this is in no ways, Chairperson.
I think what we should do is, it's going to be faster if we adjourn. Let me go and read this affidavit, and then when I come back, then we can have a proper engagement, rather than me reading it as you continue to address me.
We're quite
That's
happy
not
that
satisfactory.
we do that, Chairperson.
So-
I might just add, and this is again, not as an excuse, we did last night send, or yesterday afternoon late, a draft through, and we undertook to give the signed one with the annexes this morning. As I said, I think it's a good suggestion by yourself, Chairperson, to go through it, and we can then engage in the content of the affidavit.
Yes.
So just in
and,
short, Chairperson, so that you understand where we come from in this. Our client's not in a position to give evidence today for the reasons set out herein. He was also not in a position to file his affidavit as per the directive because of the reasons set out herein. So we've got the affidavit and we refer to the various annexes, that is email exchanges, requests for further documents
Yeah,
in the
no,
annexes,
no,
just so
that-
that you understand.
That's fine. Let me go and read it. We are going to adjourn for 15 minutes. I think that should be enough for me to read, but if I finish earlier, then we'll resume earlier than 15 minutes. Okay, we adjourn. I've read this affidavit. I haven't looked at I haven't read the annexures, but the deponent deals with the gist of what's in the annexures to a very large extent in his affidavit. Now that I've read it, so what do you say? What do you want to say about it?
Chairperson, what we are requesting of yourself is that we be afforded an opportunity, having regard to the content of our affidavit with all the annexes, to file a comprehensive affidavit with the Commission. We believe in doing so, we will curtail any evidence that needs to be
Well, we
left.
will lose today, that's for sure.
Yes,
And the Commission simply doesn't have time left. There is very little time left. There are many witnesses and implicated persons who must still give evidence. It is just very, very difficult to allow any day to be lost.
Chairperson, we understand that, but we verily believe once the Commission has sight of our client's affidavit.
That affidavit should have been brought a long time ago. And I've read what Mr. Singh says here, and I'm not convinced that he gives an acceptable reason for not complying with the directives.
With the greatest of respect, Chairperson, we believe that there is good reason why he did not do so, and it relates to, first of all, the change of legal teams. You will then notice once Matopo attorneys got on board, they immediately corresponded with the Commission. And throughout, you will see, Chairperson, there's communication. We didn't sit back and just let it be. We communicated, explained our position to the Commission, and almost in minutiae, said to them, this is the problems that we've got. And specifically, I think if you take note of what our client says, Mr. Singh says in the beginning, he wants to play ball with the Commission, if I can refer to it colloquially.
The history of his conduct doesn't show that.
That is an inference to be drawn, Chairperson,
Yes.
but take it from us as the legal team and from our client. We place on record. We want to assist the Commission. And the client verily believed, as he set out here, that the best way to assist the Commission is to give the Commission a comprehensive version. And that comprehensive version...
Well, he would be seeking to be treated differently from how other people have been treated. The way the Commission has dealt with issues from the beginning is that people who may have a number of matters to testify about and be questioned about, they get called for a specific matter at a particular time or specific matters. And they are told, for now, you are just coming to give evidence about A, B, and C. We will ask you to come back later and deal with D, E, and F. And almost without exception, everyone has cooperated with that. That is why there are many witnesses who have come back to the Commission to give evidence about other matters. So all that is required and has been required of Mr. Singh is that today he comes to testify only about the matters that he has been told about, and he has had ample time knowing what those matters are. He would have been given, even before the directives and even before the summons, he would have been given Rule 33 notices in regard to the matters. Of course, also one can't ignore the fact that there is no way that somebody like Mr. Singh could have thought that this commission would finish its job without calling him to come and give evidence. So he has known from the inception of this commission. It was established early in 2018. So he has had 3 years of knowing that in all probability at some stage or another he would be called, and he knew what matters are likely to be raised with him. And he could easily have made sure that if and when he is called, he is ready.
Chairperson, may I address you on a few of the issues that you raised
Yes,
now? First
yes.
of all, the summons we received in December, and you would have noticed from the affidavit, Mr. Matopo immediately dealt with it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go again to the details, but the fact of the matter is only on Friday afternoon did we understand and we were given, and I don't want to go into an off-the-record discussion, but it's common cause. We were at that point informed exactly what we were going to be called about, that it's the Tegeto issue, and we at that stage played open cards with the legal team and the investigators during this and explained to them, we've got issues in the following sense. We've not had the benefit, one, of being presented with a reference file. We've taken note of the way the Commission works, and when witnesses give evidence, they refer to a reference file and they refer to documents. In order for us, and in fairness for us to prepare, we need that. So in the Commission, I think late Friday or early evening, forwarded us not the updated, but the documents they had electronically. We also at that stage pointed out to them, insofar as you want to lead our clients' evidence with reference to the portfolio committee, we want to place on record, and it's documented that our client has not received the transcript of his evidence that he gave at the commission. And we explained to them, you will appreciate that at the time, our client was no longer with Eskom. The written submissions were prepared in vacua. In other words, relying on memory, not the benefit of certain documents, etc. And on that basis, the client also gave evidence there. You will appreciate for him now to, from memory, deal with issues that he gave evidence on. I think the date was in January of 2018. It's just not fair. He needs an opportunity to go through his evidence and deal with the issues that arose there. To that extent, I think yesterday afternoon, quite late, we finally got an electronic version of the evidence. And you will appreciate, Chairperson, and forgive me for repeating this, we dealt with it. We constantly asked, we need it. It's important for us to have it. We needed to comprehensively deal with the issues raised. So you will understand that this is not a question of not having prepared all along. As we've stated, we worked on an affidavit. There was a draft, which we constantly had to amend because of the new evidence that came up. And
yeah,
the
but
reason...
you were required, as at a certain date, to give your version based on what was available at the time. Obviously, if subsequently something else cropped up that needed that you supplement, a supplementary affidavit could be put in, but all you would be required to is to give your version to the best of your knowledge and belief and your recollection.
Chairperson, again, you need to understand the reason why the client was apprehensive to do that, because he once before found himself in a position where he had to give evidence, and it led to difficulties. He deals with it in his affidavit, where he's not had the benefit of documents, other people's input, etc., to give a fair, reasonable, and truthful explanation at the time. And for that reason, he explains to the Commission, I was apprehensive to in vacua just deal with, because the ghetto, you will recall, is annexes A to G, I think. So it's just pieces of paper.
Can I have a copy of the summons that was served on him?
The summons to appear today.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is the directives, Mr. Matopo. Chairperson, may I just approach my attorney whilst you read
Yes,
that,
yes.
please?
Well, this someone says he is directed to appear before the commission for the purpose of giving evidence before the commission and being questioned on the affidavit that he had submitted to the commission and the issues arising from or relating thereto. What affidavit had he signed? Had he filed with the commission? Please switch on the mic.
Sorry, at that point he hadn't filed an affidavit, and my instructing attorney went on record to say, we don't know what affidavit you are referring to, please enlighten us. And you will appreciate, again, I don't want to put blame at the door of Mr. Seleka and his team, but the first communication we got back from them was on the 7th of January. That's after the letter of Mr. Matopo of 18 December. And just one more point that was brought to my attention, Chairperson. The first time our client was informed that he will be needed and for purposes of potentially giving evidence in the commission was in August last year. So it's not an issue, and we've taken note of the fact that many people that's been involved in the issues that's canvassed were never caught. So with that again as background, they potentially could have been a reasonable thought process by the client that he might not be caught, that he might not be needed to come and give evidence. And it was on that basis, as I said, that client prepared the draft affidavit and constantly amended it as the evidence came up. Because the thought process was, if we present the commission with a thoroughly thought through, comprehensive affidavit dealing with these issues, and I can place on record that the way we dealt with the draft, and I've informed my learned friends about it, is to deal with the issues as we were informed you wish to deal with.
Assume that you persuade me, and I'm far from being persuaded. Assume that you persuade me that I should allow Mr. Singh not to testify today. This affidavit that you are talking about, which I assume would deal with the issues contained, he was required to deal with in the directives. And deal with certainly those. Maybe it would deal with some of the matters that he was supposed to testify about today. When would you undertake to file it with the commission?
Chairperson, the only issue that we basically left with at this point is we last night received his oral evidence. It goes in quite a number of pages. We need to peruse that, we need to take instructions on that, and we need to prepare on it. Our suggestion to our learned friends was that we file our affidavit on Friday next week. It will then be dealing with all the issues. I see you shake your head,
No, that's
Chairperson.
too long, yeah.
Maybe if you can give us guidance, Chairperson,
Yeah.
if we can be so bold to give us guidance as to when you would find it reasonable for us. As I said, I place on record, we're relatively far in our preparation. It's literally, we need to deal with our oral evidence, and we need to deal with, I think, some of the evidence that was presented yesterday. And then we can, and we have to, sorry, just one more issue. We have to deal with the reference file. There's issues that's contained, documents in the reference file that's utilized by my learned friends for the commission. And there's certain documents in there that we have to deal with. And that is having regard to the manner and the way evidence was led and the issues that was highlighted by both yourself, Chairperson, and my learned friend that you find important, where you need a proper explanation on, and that is what our client wants to give you.
Can I see the directives that were issued as well?
The
The
directives.
directives, yeah. Or was it one or was it two?
It was two directives,
Yeah,
Chairperson.
okay.
In the affidavit, we state the one that relates to the Tegeta issue, if I can call it,
Yes.
simply is a directive with annexes A to G.
Yeah.
These annexes are pure documents in vacua, if I can be so bold to state it like that. And if we were to file, and that was our problem at the time, and you would notice that we asked for numerous documents in order to assist us to deal with the issues or to deal with annexes A to G. If we were to file in vacua, we would have said, yes, we agree that the document is recorded correctly. Yes, we agree. But that would not have assisted you, Chairperson. What you want to have is to understand how document or Annex A came about. What role did you play? And to that extent, what transpired, and again, we've dealt with it in the affidavit, what transpired is that witnesses came to give evidence. And they've got a version on it, and on occasion we agree, on other occasions we don't agree. And then documents came up that we never had sight of. And those documents, of course, refreshed our memory. And by looking at the document, we can objectively say to the Commission in our affidavit, if you look at the document, this is our version. And we're not taking issue, for instance, with the Commission's approach on this. Or if you look at this document, and a lot of these documents, if I may interrupt myself, only came up during December with the evidence, and to that extent, and I don't want to highlight it, Ms. Daniel's evidence is quite important. And documents were presented to her that we didn't have. And that, of course, again, prompted us to deal with that. So I hope you understand, Chairperson, what our predicament is. We want to assist the Commission, and we want to curtail clients sitting here and going through written submissions that we might say, take it as a given, it's correct, except I want to amplify this point and this point. Instead of taking the client through that, did you say this? Yes. Did you say this? Yes. So with that as a background, we really literally beg you to give us an indulgence to assist the Commission and file this affidavit. And take it from us that we believe it will curtail his evidence, and we won't, and I'm not going to say today will be wasted if he's taken through that, but it might not even be necessary to deal with it in that way.
If I grant you the indulgence, my inclination would be that it should be enough if you file on Monday.
We understand, and if that's your directive, we will file on Monday.
Yes, yes. Okay, all right. Let me hear what Mr. Selega has to say.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I've listened carefully to my learned friend. I think two issues that needs to be addressed from what she's saying is, one is the reason for the failure. I think that's apparent from the affidavit that the position taken by Mr. Anoj Singh is that I waited to hear the evidence of other people in order to file an affidavit or submit one. And that the evidence in regard to the Tegeta matters came up only in December 2020.
I'll tell you what, Mr. Selega. The only thing that might persuade me to grant effectively a postponement of the hearing of Mr. Anoj Singh's evidence. I'm not sure about all the arguments that have been advanced about the reasons and so on. But I've looked at this summons.
Yes,
Have you looked at this summons that was issued to him?
I've looked at them.
It says he is directed to appear before the commission, and it gives the address and the date, which is today. And then it says, for the purpose of giving evidence before the commission and being questioned on the affidavit that you have submitted to the commission and the issues arising from and or relating thereto. Now, what affidavit was the legal team talking about there?
Yes, Chairperson, that's an important question. Chair, I want to read from the letter that we addressed to him because...
Well, let's talk about the summons first.
Yes, because...
So I'm asking the question, the summons called him to appear today to
Yes.
give evidence
Yes,
and to be questioned on the affidavit it alleged he had submitted to the commission and the issues arising from or relating thereto. What
Yes.
affidavit was the legal team talking about?
yes, at that stage, Chairperson, as my learned friend said for Mr. Anoj Singh, he had not served an affidavit, but it was expected from him the day after the summons was served.
So the summons was talking about a non-existent affidavit.
It was talking about an affidavit at the time that had not been given.
It was
That's
non-existent.
Correct, Chairperson.
Does that make the summons, does that not make the summons defective?
Well, Chair, I think in discussion with the legal team at the time who were assisting me with attorneys for Mr. Anoj Singh, there was an undertaking from their part that there will be an affidavit on the 18th of December. I believe the summons were served on the 17th of December.
How does that help whether or not the summons is defective? If at the time the summons was issued, it referred to a non-existent affidavit that he must come and testify about a non-existent affidavit and issues arising from that affidavit which didn't exist.
Yeah, what I'm saying to the chairperson is that if there's any defect in that regard, Chairperson, it's taken care of by the arrangement.
But
between
why
the
was the
parties.
summons issued which said he has submitted an affidavit when factually he had not submitted an affidavit?
Yes, that point I have myself also raised, Chair. But I was given to understand that, look, it was against the background of an undertaking given by...
But you can't issue a summons that says you have somebody has filed an affidavit if factually that has not happened.
Yes. Chair, the summons is issued against a particular person,
Yes.
and that person has been engaging with the commission in regard to the filing
But
of
it
this
doesn't
affidavit.
matter. The summons must tell the person to whom it is issued what he is required to testify about on the day when he is required to appear. And effectively, what this summons is requiring Mr. Singh to come and testify about is an affidavit that did not exist then and actually doesn't exist even now, as far as I'm concerned, because I don't think that the affidavit that has been handed up is
No,
that
it hasn't.
affidavit.
No,
So
it hasn't.
How do I insist that he must give evidence today when the summons told him to come and testify about a non-existent affidavit?
Chair, when the issue was raised, you will see from the letter that I then wrote, Chairperson, personally, which is the last annexure in this affidavit. I explained the position that, okay, I understand that the communication between you and the commission, which is my assistance in the commission, was that you, and I think even with the secretariat, was that an affidavit was anticipated from you on the 18th.
See, the moment you say it was anticipated, it
Yes.
doesn't help. You, as the leader, should not have authorized your team to give the Secretariat a summons to sign, which said Mr. Singh was required to appear and give evidence and be questioned on an affidavit that you had not seen.
I accept that, Chairperson,
You see?
that it could not have been written that way. Ordinarily, you wouldn't write it that way, Chairperson. That I accept. I accept that they would have then based their summons in that regard in the light of the anticipation. That is not giving you the answer, Chairperson, but I'm saying that's what
Yeah,
they said.
it doesn't help me because in the first place, the summons didn't have to refer to any affidavit by him.
Correct, Chair. Correct. I've raised that issue, Chair.
You and your team ought to have known what the issues are or were that you wanted him to testify about.
Yes.
And those could have been listed in an annexure as Annexure A. So the summons could have said, for the purpose of giving evidence before the commission and being questions on the matters listed in Annexure A, then you could list the issues, or you refer to the affidavits of witnesses that have implicated him that you would want to question him about. That could have been done. You didn't have to refer to any affidavit by him in circumstances where there was no affidavit by him.
Chair, I've raised that issue myself. That the explanation I've given you, Chairperson, is how I get it. I wrote a letter explaining to the attorney for Mr. Anoj Singh that the issues he would be expected to testify about are those that were listed in the directives.
But the summons should stand or fall on its own. It should be complete. It should tell the person to whom it is directed what the matters are that he is required to testify about. And this summons, as it stands, doesn't tell him anything meaningful, because everybody knows that whereas it says he would give evidence and be questioned on the affidavit he had submitted, everybody knows he had not submitted any affidavit.
Yes, Chair, that's what I'm saying to the Chairperson. I accept your position, Chairperson, that's correct. What I'm saying to the Chairperson is how the communication unfolded between the parties. So,
Yeah, no, my interest was whether or not I can insist on the basis of this summons that he testifies today, and it seems to me that I can't or shouldn't, because I'm not satisfied that the summons sufficiently tells him or tells him what he's is required to testify about. There may have been correspondence between
the parties.
the Commission's legal team and her, whatever, but the summons which required and compelled him to appear before the Commission doesn't tell him. The only thing you can ask him about today, strictly speaking, is this non-existent affidavit.
Yeah, for him to, yeah.
He would be entitled to say, I've been told through this summons that I will give evidence and be questioned on this affidavit and issues relating to it. And he can say, where's that affidavit? Before you ask me questions, what would you say? He would be entitled to say, you can't ask me questions on other matters. Yeah. The matters you have called me here to deal with are the matters that are in the affidavit. And the affidavit is talking about a non-existent affidavit.
Chair, and I'm not answering the Chairperson, but I'm answering him on the hypothetical question, Chairperson. But it will not be fair for him to ask the question if there has been an engagement between the parties.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, why would he not be entitled to say, I'm here under compulsion on the basis of this summons? And this summons says, today my evidence must relate to this affidavit. You can't go outside the scope of the summons. So, So I must say that I was very inclined to refuse the indulgence, the request for indulgence that counsel for Mr. Singh asked for, and wanted to insist that Mr. Singh begins his evidence today and be questioned. But in the light of this summons, I don't think that I can do that. But I also take note that counsel for Mr. Singh has very passionately undertaken that they intend to file a comprehensive affidavit. When I indicated that if I granted the indulgence, I wouldn't grant them up to Friday next week, but up to Monday, she has said that they will comply with that deadline. So, if you have something to say, something else to say, you can say, but right now I'm inclined to reluctantly grant the indulgence, but make the order that they must file their affidavit, comprehensive affidavit on Monday. But if you would like to deal with some matters to argue that I should not grant the indulgence, you may do so, but that's my difficulty. I've indicated to you what my difficulty is.
Yes, no, Chair, I understand, because on the one hand, you have discussions between the parties, exchanged by letters, and you see how parties accommodate each other, or the Commission and the parties. On the other hand, you have the formalities of the rules. So if you go strictly by the formalities of the rules, Chairperson, which I appreciate, that's what the Chairperson is focusing on, that is the approach to be adopted. But I think it's really opportunistic, Chairperson, after having engaged along the lines that the Commission and the party have done. And mind you, Chairperson, reliance was not placed on that summons to seek a postponement. It's placed on other things.
Well, it might not have been placed on it, but if I'm going to insist that Mr. Anoj Singh takes the witness stand and gives evidence and be questioned, I must be satisfied that he has been properly summoned, because he could be entitled, and that's not what his counsel has said, but he could be entitled to say, well, if I'm being forced to give evidence, I'm going to approach the court and have this summons set aside, because it's fatally defective. And he might have a good point. So it's more about whether in these circumstances and in the light of this summons, I can insist that he gives evidence. That's where my difficulty is, and I'm inclined to think that I can't or shouldn't. But I get the impression that certainly his counsel is committed to assisting the Commission by way of this comprehensive affidavit, and so that would be helpful. Yeah.
Yes, Chair. Certainly, she's communicated that much to me. But can I also, and I don't need to persuade the Chairperson, because she has already told the Chairperson that we have informed them that they will be testifying on the Tegeta matters. But that doesn't have to change the Chairperson's view, because the emphasis is on the summons as it is. I myself have had to question the summons. The Chairperson will appreciate the workload, and not everything passes under one's eye. So
Well, yeah,
that's-
but a summons in your work stream shouldn't go out without you having authorized it. That shouldn't happen. And as you see, this is, as far as I'm concerned, a fatal defect of the summons. The summons is fatally defective. Okay. Unless you have some other points to make, I am inclined to grant the indulgence, make an order that Mr. Singh must file his comprehensive affidavit by close of business on Monday. And then one will have to find another date when he must come back. And you will just have to make sure that that time the summons is not defective.
we'll certainly attend to that one, Chairperson. I don't think I have
Yes.
any further to say, except that my learned friend will bear in mind that there has been a long standing indulgences. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm going to adjourn the hearing of Mr. Anoj Singh's evidence to a date yet to be determined, and then order that he delivers to the commission by close of business on Monday a comprehensive affidavit as indicated by his counsel, dealing with all the issues referred to in the affidavit, in the 10-6 directives. But counsel, it goes beyond that. What you want to put up is actually also other issues that you would testify about. Is that right?
Indeed, Chairperson, our
Yes.
intention is to deal with the evidence, the documents, etc.,
Yes, yeah.
based on the issues that we know you wish to hear
Yes.
evidence on vis-a-vis Tegeta.
Yes, okay, no, that's fine. Okay, so the order I make is the following. One, the hearing of Mr. Anoj Singh's evidence is adjourned to a date to be determined. Two, Mr. Anoj Singh is ordered to deliver to the commission by close of business on Monday, the 18th of January 2021, the comprehensive affidavit that his counsel has referred to that will deal with, among other things, the issues referred to in the two directives, as well as all the issues that he is required to testify about. Three, another date for Mr. Anoj Singh to appear before the commission will be determined in due course. That is the order.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. We are going to adjourn for the day, but later on, the commission will hear evidence, so there'll be a sitting later on, I think at 4. We'll hear evidence from Mr. Chris Todd relating to Transnet. But then tomorrow, the commission will continue with evidence relating to Eskom. Who are the witnesses for tomorrow?
That's in the morning is Ms. Matietsi Mkolo. Then there's 2 further witnesses, Ms. Musilo Motepu and Ms. Bianca Goodson.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, we adjourn.
Thank you, Chair.